Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shauna Hirschfield. I am Hamilton class of 2006, and I work in the Hamilton Career Center. Last year, we launched the Hamilton Career Network, which helps connect alumni with other alumni and with students and community members around their career interests. So we're really thrilled to have you all here today for our newest Hamilton Career Network program and series, How I Built This, the Montauk Brewery with Joe Sullivan, class of 2007. Please also be sure to check the alumni events page for all of the other fun things we have going on. We've got tons of events every single week, so please join us for other things that we have going on as well. You should have been muted upon entry, but you feel free to unmute yourself throughout the conversation. I'll also be monitoring the chat window, so you're welcome to ask any questions there that might come up along the way. Additionally, we'll have time at the end for a more formal Q&A, so feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself or jump into the conversation however you'd like. Another just quick important note of business is if folks could please change their names to be their first and their last name, that would be helpful to know who's here in the room today. So if you don't know how to do that, you can hover over either your picture or your name on the participant list, click on the More button or the three little dots, and then say rename and enter your first and your last name so we know who's here. Thank you in advance for doing that. All right, we are going to jump right into it. Paige Engeldrum, class of 2013, and Sarah Pickup, class of 2019, are the Hamilton Career Network business leader, and vice leader, respectively. They helped coordinate this event today, so thanks to you both for your efforts to plan today's program.
Thank you.
And I will hand it off to you to introduce our speaker.
Awesome. Thank you, Shauna. First off, thank you everyone for joining and tuning in. We're excited that everybody from across the country is listening in, so thank you. Also, shout out Dan Fielding. However you put up those little masks on Zoom, you have to teach us how, because that is awesome. So calling you out for that, but that was so cool.
It's a new feature. If you update Zoom, you can add filters to the screen, like
amazing
background. Great.
Making every call so much better. Well, anyway, we're really excited to start off our How I Built This series. We're inspired by the NPR podcast, and for our inaugural event, we have Joe Sullivan, Shauna. Joe is a project manager and in business development at Telemark, but we have him on today to talk about co-founding or being a co-founder of Montauk Brewing Company. So Joe, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate your time. And we're excited to hear from you. So just to start off, we'd love to hear about your background, where you grew up, how you found yourself at Hamilton. So I'll turn it over to you.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for having me. This is awesome. This is a very cool thing. Can't say I've ever done anything like this before, but I'm excited to share my story with you guys and celebrate over a beer or two in the meantime. So first, I want to start off. Hopefully, you guys have a beer or something out there to cheers with. But thanks for being here, and yeah, we'll get things going. Cheers.
Cheers.
So Joe Sullivan. I grew up in East Hampton, New York. And I ended up at Hamilton. Actually, my cousin Robbie Peters, class of 2000, he had gone to Hamilton. He was a football player. So when I was 12, 13 years old, I used to come up and watch a handful of his football games. He'd be playing football. I'd watch the game. I'd go and play up on the soccer turf, some touch football with other local kids and people that were watching the games. But was really taken in by the campus, and fast forward a few years later, I came to Hamilton right out of college, or right out of high school, I should say, and I was a cross-country runner and a track runner. I was part of TDX, which I understand is no longer part of the campus. I guess that's bound to happen sooner or later. But I had an excellent time on campus, thoroughly enjoyed it. Really got to appreciate all the seasons for what they're worth. I got out in the Glen quite a bit, around town, and I just really enjoyed the whole Hamilton experience. And, always love to share with people considering it, how much I liked being on the campus and getting to meet all the people that I got to meet, which, now being back at home in East Hampton, I run across guys, on a regular basis, even in the grocery store, shopping around town, at the beach, you name it. It's a pretty cool thing how often you get to cross paths with somebody from the Hill, older or younger. It's great just to make the connections. So graduated Hamilton in 07. Came back home. I started working for a solar company, Green Logic Energy, and I was installing and then later selling and designing solar systems. And I ended up working there with two of my friends that I had grown up with. Basically just had the idea to start putting together the brewery.
Sorry to interrupt, for the brewing company, when did this idea come to be? Was it something that you and your friends talked about before going to college? Is it something that came about, you were all in college, kept in touch and started working on it? How did the idea come to be?
So I thought about having a brewery actually while I was on the Hill. It was my sophomore year. There were a few guys that we were buddies with, all kind of just, we were interested in the idea of it. And a few of them had met with the guys up at FX Mat, Saranac and Utica, and kind of got like the lowdown of, what would work and how to kind of roll out the plan. Fast forward a few years after I graduate, I connect with two of my buddies that I'm working with at Green Logic Energy, and we used to lifeguard out in Montauk for a number of years. So they're guys I've known for a long time. I brewed a batch of beer with our now brewmaster Eric Moss. Bought a handful of books one summer while I was lifeguarding, and watched a lot of YouTube videos. And basically we joined up, Vaughn, myself, and Eric, and just built our own little home brew kit and started making beer in the basement in Montauk.
First batch, was it good? Was it bad? What was the sentiment? Was it total failure?
It was good. I can say it was good.
Okay.
It wasn't great, and it definitely needed improvements, but it was good enough to drink, and it was worth sharing. We didn't have to go and drink it all of ourselves and try to convince ourselves that it was at least drinkable.
So first batch was a success, or on the way to being a success. Take us to where you went from there. So starting the brewery and growing your business. And if you could share a little bit of information on how you were funding the business, that'd be awesome.
Okay. It was fall of 08, and I had joined up with Eric and Vaughn, and we started planning how to start a brewery. So we tossed around a handful of different names that we were trying to figure out what to call it. We didn't have any sort of industry experience. We just knew that, in Montauk we could figure out how to make beer and how to sell it, at least in the local bars. So we had this idea that, we knew where we needed to get in order to get beer, on a draft system or in a bottle, and we just didn't know quite how to get there. So we started making beer in the basement, trying out a bunch of different recipes, with the end goal of being able to perfect recipes and open up doors and eventually start selling beer. So we used to throw parties at our house. We would do them for St. Patrick's Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, and we'd make up a holiday in August and then Labor Day. And each month we'd have, 50 to 100, 150 people over at the house, barbecue. We bought ourselves a little kegerator, and just sampling our beers. The homebrew beer would be gone within an hour or two, and then it was on to the, Bud Light keg or
the not as good
like that to keep the party going, just because we couldn't nearly make enough beer to be able to, supply. So we started doing that, all this time while trying to put together a plan on how we're going to be opening. We were all three of us working at Green Logic, so this was done, after work or on the weekends, and just trying to formulate the plan of what to do. So about a year before we were about to open, we realized that we weren't going to be able to quite open the way that we wanted to. The East Hampton town had never had a brewery before, so they didn't quite know how to classify us and what to allow us to be able to do. So we started the process of getting the building approved, of a building approved to be a brewery. It was actually Vaughn's dad's woodworking shop. So he had built it some 16 years before, and he was a cabinet maker and used the tasting room. If any of you guys have been to the tasting room, the front used to be his showroom for his cabinet doors. So he was looking to retire the same time that we were looking to open. So we lucked out big time with that, and basically started trying to figure out how to turn that building into a brewery. While we were learning that, it was going to take longer than we expected to open, we still wanted to open the business. So we started contract brewing with a brewery upstate New York, Butternuts Beer and Ale, and had our first few years of beer made there while we were getting the brewery approved to open up in Montauk. So that was great that they were able to, they took our recipe that we had brewed on a little pilot system, basically just learning and perfecting the recipe as we went. With the beer, our first beer that we put out, Driftwood Ale, was our flagship, no longer, but it was, I think we did it 9 times before we decided that it was, we hit the mark on it. But we started with that, went to a few others, but those guys upstate New York in Butternuts, it was great to work with them and have them get us up off the ground.
And at that time, how many types of beers did you have? Was it just the Driftwood Ale that you took to them to start mass producing, or did you have a selection of different beers?
It started out as that, and then we had a few others that we would do short runs on. We weren't going through a lot of beer at that time anyway. So we ended up opening up in June of 2012, and we had kegs of beer land. We had gone up there, brewed it. And actually, I ended up missing my 5-year reunion because I was in the middle of trying to open up the brewery. My plan originally had been to show up on campus with at least a keg or two, but nothing ever really happened.
Save that for the 10-year.
We had enough for the 10-year. But so opened up in June 2012 and delivered our first keg on a bike with a trailer down to one of the restaurants just down the street. And so we'd only started with Driftwood initially, and then brought a few other ones in. Really, within the first year, we were only distributed Montauk, Amagansett, East Hampton, a little bit into Sag Harbor, and a lot of the accounts would shut down during the wintertime anyway. So it was just kind of supplying the local go-to year-round places with beer.
Mm-hmm. And when you started the brewery, what was your ultimate goal? Were you, upon inception, did you say, okay, we just want to be an East End of Long Island beer that can supply all of these local restaurants? Or did you look further and have a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan? How did you structure that?
So we didn't really have any idea where our road was going to take us. Mm-hmm. We knew that we could at least get it into the East End bars, bars and restaurants. We knew, basically probably Southampton, West Hampton to the east. We knew that we could at least start to get places there. Mm-hmm. We had no idea, how things would turn out along the road. A lot has changed over the last 8 years. And luckily, the local East Hampton town, Southampton, Sag Harbor, they all really embraced us, which is a very cool thing. And then we opened up distribution throughout Long Island within the first year of us opening, maybe a little bit more. But Long Island is also very close, which was very cool to see. I don't know if any of you guys are from Long Island or have ever heard the term Strong Island, but as soon as we started moving into the rest of the island, they really embraced us, which was awesome.
And how did you make contacts to start spreading to these different cities and these different restaurants? Did you know people in the industry? Did you rely on introductions through your network? How did you do that?
Kind of a little bit of everything. So we had no industry experience with alcohol of any form except for being on the other side of the bar, drinking it and enjoying it. So we definitely networked in every which direction that we could. I've made a bunch of Hamilton connections through that, through bars in the city, bars on Long Island, restaurants here. It's definitely a cool thing. So we joined up with 2 distributors. Initially, it was just Long Island, and we launched New York City in the fall of 2015. So three plus years in the business is when we finally opened up the city. But we work with a distributor that carries, they'll carry Sam Adams, Miller Lite, Brooklyn Lager beers. They carry a bunch of different beers, and we're just one of the ones within their portfolio. We're one of the local brands, and that's it's kind of how we wanted to work with somebody that wanted to work with a local brand and be able to take them to grow them. So they've got connections with all the bars and restaurants, and it's just a battle on the street trying to fight for tap handles and placements in Whole Foods and bodega corners, corner of their cold room, basically.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I want to talk a little bit more about the branding, because I think that's obviously the beer and now the seltzer is great, but I think the branding, you have nailed it. Is there one that you put more emphasis on when you launched?
Sorry, branding of
Montauk Brewery, between the colors, the cans. Would love to hear more about the "Come as You Are" slogan. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. So we had initially started with it was a Montauk Indian arrowhead that one of us had found, and a friend of ours had drawn our logo. And so we had ended up partnering with a marketing firm, and kind of giving a rebranding look. What we did was we took a whole bunch of cans, threw them up on the wall, and put our theme in the middle. And we tried to mess around with different looks, something that would stand out, in a sea of crazy, colorful craft cans. Lots of cool designs out there. And we wanted to figure out what would pop, what would stand out. And that's when we landed with the nautical theme, which we thought fit as true as could be to Montauk. All the colors and flags are made up, so you get to have some fun with the design of them. And just trying to keep it clean and concise and recognizable. Even in the beginning, now we have everything wrapped in the cardboard boxes, but in the beginning we had the rings that are awful for the ocean, and
little plastic rings,
stuff that we were just kind of stuck using it because that's where what our co-packer had used. But we used to walk around in all the stores, and every single can, you're taking it and turning it, and it was just a constant battle. You couldn't even go grocery shopping without walking in the store and flipping around 20 cans that all needed to be straight. So as soon as we got to the cardboard, which is way better to use, made our lives a lot easier, and it was a lot easier to
go grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Come as you are. So this is your slogan. I love it. It's great. Where did it come from, and what does it mean to you and the brand?
So we decided to go with "Come as You Are" because we really felt that that's what Montauk was. Montauk is a very cool place, and you get to see people from all walks of life. Whether it's the fisherman, the somebody who works in the local surf shop or deli, and you've got the artists, the businessman, the doctor. Everyone's coming from all different directions, coming into Montauk. So we figured that we wanted to be as welcoming as possible, and what better way to say it than "Come as You Are." And if you've ever been to our tasting room, we try to be as friendly as possible. You can bring your dog, bring your kids. It really is try to make it a community thing. And we've made a whole lot of friends in doing so, which is pretty cool, pretty awesome.
Do you think having such an inclusive and welcoming environment has allowed you to touch a lot of different generations? So you're not, or I would say your beer, your brand isn't necessarily geared towards one demographic. You're able to touch a lot of different generations, and you have a large, broad target consumer.
Yeah, and kind of using that "come as you are" slogan. I mean, we get, we've got the triathlons that run out in Montauk, so usually when they're over, or some long, bike ride from New York to Montauk Point, we get these groups that come in and will hang out for the day. Or you get the fishermen, out there on the sport fishing boats coming in after their catch, and they're all hanging out. It's we try to be as welcoming as we can, so we can hit, the younger drinkers, we can hit the middle age, you can hit the older crew that just come in and they want to pick up a pint and a growler and leave, or someone who's hanging around for 2 or 3 or 4 and listening to music and thoroughly enjoying it. We try to create that atmosphere that we really feel and embraces Montauk and how we view it and how we think it works out the best.
Yeah. Over the past, or I guess from when you started to today, craft beer production has become one of the fastest growing and most popular segments in the beverage industry. How does Montauk Brewing Company stay relevant and continue to appeal to your audience?
It's definitely tough staying relevant. When we first opened up in 2012, there were some 2,800 breweries across the nation. Now there are over 8,000. At least as of March, before COVID hit. Unfortunately, I think more are closing. But hovering right around that 8,000 number. Lots of different beers out there with few spots, on the shelves, on the tap handles to try to get it, try to place it. So it's definitely a battle trying to stand out among those, all the great names, all the big beers and options. It can definitely be overwhelming. But we just try to stay true to Montauk and keep to our message. Our Instagram account is huge, and that's really what has helped get the word out for us. And it's just trying to keep things clean and appealing, and we're always innovating and coming up with new beers. So most of the beer that we brew, we actually still contract brew with Wachusett Brewing Company, and with Two Roads. But we use Montauk for our test kitchen, and Eric Moss and our other brewer Steve, they're always constantly innovating, and we've been doing basically short, like one-off beers that are limited edition. We only do 100 to 200 cases of them, and we've been going through a lot of that, and playing with that sort of thing is also a lot of fun for us, because we get to see what the fans want, what people are looking to drink, and that's at the end of the day, that is ultimately why we started making beer, because we wanted to be able to share it with everybody. So getting to have people come through the front door to try different beers that we think we're putting a lot of effort into, and to have them be embraced and to hear all the feedback is such a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite beer, whether it be limited edition or one of the classics?
My favorite right now is we just did a 2-can IPA, and unfortunately I had my last one last night. We ran out of it. It was well enjoyed, but unfortunately I don't have it here in front of me right now, and we're all out of it. We finished it about a month ago.
Okay.
But yeah, it was it's a like I said, a short one-off that is an IPA, super light, easy drinking. Right now I'm drinking our Lighthouse IPA, which is another one-off that we had done. And we did an art contest, design a can contest, which turned out, way bigger than we even could have imagined. We had tons of submissions that all were really cool. and I've got two of them here, but a girl designed them with, it was like a series. So 3 of them stacked on top, create the lighthouse, and then another lighthouse on the side. And it was all done off of her designs. And we had, tremendous fun, even just, looking at all the different designs that people were putting together.
A great way to stay engaged.
Yeah.
Following up on that, sort of your favorite beer, have you ever tried competitors' beers and thought, oh, I really like that and I want to create something similar to that, or when you're creating these new beers?
All the time, the research and development. So we'll often go down to one of the local beer stores and just, if we know that we're going into the winter months and we're thinking about some sort of stout that we want to brew. And yeah, we've done a handful of them, but let's see what some of the other brewers out there are doing. Let's see what some of the guys from the West Coast are doing. So we'll go and buy West Coast stouts, and you try all these different beers to see how these other guys were doing it. And it's a lot of fun, trial and error with figuring out the recipe to try to match or closely match somebody else's beer. I used to drink a ton of Sierra Nevada, their pale ale, before we started making any beer. Now I get it every now and then, but it was stuff like that we used to try to mimic what Montauk was doing. Our driftwood was kind of similar, a little maltier, but we had decided to design it in that fashion. But it's definitely a lot of fun trying everyone else's beer out there. We often drop off samples or have samples dropped off to us from other guys out there just to see what they're up to and see what they're working on.
I'd love to learn more about just overall lessons you've learned. So I want to start off with if there's anything that you'd have chose to done differently over the last 8 years or so.
Anything that we would have done differently. I think in the beginning, so we're right now we're a sales-driven organization. Yeah, we do have a lot of fun with beer, and being out, in the beer world is enjoyable. It's a fun thing to do, but we are sales-driven, and I think it took us a little bit to figure that out. And once you start, really getting to dive into, looking at a map and trying to figure out where you are, where you want to be, and trying to find the pockets where you're not, that's a whole lot of work to figure out. And I would say that, maybe initially we were, being on the East End, it's kind of hard to get out of the Montauk area. So, there's a lot of ground to cover. And I think just hitting the streets earlier on, we probably could have done even more with that.
Mm-hmm. And your business partners, so these were friends from high school or from growing up? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. How did you choose them as business partners? And do you have advice for choosing a business partner if you want to start your own company or venture?
Yeah, I was good friends with Vaughn Cattell and Eric Moss. Since we were young, we used to do junior lifeguards together, 10, 11, 12 years old, kind of reconnected when we ended up at high school together, worked as lifeguards, went away to college, always came back home during the summertime and were lifeguarding, and then worked together with them for 4 or 5 years, if not more, at Green Logic. And, basically that we were fortunate that we knew each other so well, and we knew that we all had good work ethics. So I would say, trusting your business partners, knowing that if somebody is going to, pour their heart and soul into what they're doing, I would say that's probably first and foremost. And I think just because I have known these guys for so long, it was easy to know that, I could trust them, and that, they could trust me, and that, it would be a system that worked. We'd all be able to play off each other's strengths and weaknesses. Even right when we first started, it was clear what our roles were, that Eric was the brewmaster, Vaughn was, the marketing, and I was doing the sales, and, we were all kind of doing the operations and organizing it. It was we all had to wear all the hats, but it was clear that there were three of us and we had three different directions to go into. I do like having the three partners, because if it's just one, it's easy for one person to make a mistake. If there's two, it's easy to go head to head and have to split and not have it work out. Three, at least there's a balance.
Yeah.
And there's the checks and balances to make sure that one person isn't off in one direction and going place they shouldn't be. So three people I think was definitely beneficial, and something that worked out well for us.
I want to close with this last question, and we can turn it over for any Q&As from the listeners. What advice would you give somebody who is, whether it be right out of school or somebody who has a career and is looking to make a change? What advice would you give somebody who's looking to pursue their passion or start off their own business?
I would say put your head down and go. Try to do whatever you can to plan. I mean, when we were starting the brewing company, it was after hours. It was late at night. It was early in the morning to start brewing the beer. It was we knew what the goal was, and just heading in that direction. It took 4+ years to really open, but it can be a lot of work to do that sort of thing. And in our instance, it was a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of paperwork just to get through and be a legal, being able to legally sell alcohol. But I think just putting your head down and being persistent. It's easy to be discouraged, and that's another reason to have business partners. If you have a team, if you have somebody that you're working with, it's easier to keep the momentum going toward that sort of thing. But go at it at whatever level you can until it takes over full steam and requires all of your attention to quit your day job if you're lucky enough.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And Joe, thanks so much for joining and sharing this today. We're huge fans and so excited that a Hamilton alum has such an awesome career and company. So we're huge fans of the Montauk Brewing Company. So thanks for sharing your story with us.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yes, thank you very much for having us. This is cool. Hopper, I see you.
So
wasn't gonna miss it, buddy.
If you guys have any questions, you can put them in the chat. I know Dave Bolger from class of 99 had a question. Is demand for IPA still high, or do you see taste changing?
Demand for IPAs is still high. We brew a lot of them, and we brew a lot of them for a reason, because that's what the consumers want. And you get to play around with a whole bunch of different recipes with it. We were doing some hazy IPAs for a little while, and it's just kind of that dark, cloudy look that if you're not necessarily used to it, you get it filled up and you think something's wrong with it. But a lot of them are actually that way by design. So we were doing those. We've kind of stopped doing a few of them, but yeah, I would say IPAs are definitely still up there.
Do you guys have a bestseller?
We do have a bestseller. Our bestseller is Wave Chaser. Wave Chaser IPA became our flagship probably 3 years ago now, and that's the purple can, the one that I was holding up before.
Yes.
But that draft and in can flies. It's kind of a just a beast of an IPA. It's really drinkable. It's not super in your face. It doesn't take over. And we do all of our beers in a can, because it just kind of feels like something easy to drink, and start with one and put it down and onto 2 or 3 before you know it. So
You don't need a bottle opener with a.
just try to keep it.
The convenience is unmatched.
The blue can is good too. We go through a lot of summer ales, Zoe.
So you can see too, Matt Capoletti wrote, what does it cost to produce a keg of beer versus what do you sell it for restaurants and bars? If you don't want to answer any part of that question, don't feel pressured to answer.
It all kind of depends on the style of beer, and the beer goes from hand to hand to hand before it even gets to the bar or restaurant. And most of the distributors take a 30%, give or take, percentage on what they're doing. So for a keg of beer, it's less. I mean, it also depends on how big of a batch you do. If you do a 14 barrel batch versus a 100 barrel batch, you know, you save a lot by making it at 100 barrels. But it can be anywhere from, you know, $50 to $75 plus, sometimes a little bit less. It really all depends on the style and the quantity that you're making.
And sort of a follow-up to that, have you ever done, I know you did sort of the can design contest, but have you ever done any collaborations or thought of doing any collaborations, I guess, with anybody, another brewery, a restaurant, you name it?
We've done some with restaurants. We've done some with breweries, you know, where everyone gets together and they brew a beer for a fundraiser, or we brew a beer for a restaurant and it's the restaurant's, you know, such and such ale brewed by Montauk Brewing Company. We do some of that, but yeah, I mean, it all depends on the situation. But you know, whenever we are doing it with somebody, it's somebody that we enjoy working with and can have some fun with it, whether it's designing the beer or, you know, just promoting it.
Right. So next question from Rob Burke, class of 20. What impact did Hamilton have on growing the business? And do you feel like your liberal arts background helped or hurt?
I would say that it helped. You know, I would say I learned a whole lot in Hamilton, not just from the academics, but, you know, the whole campus experience. You know, it was, I definitely think that, you know, being exposed to all the things at Hamilton, you know, helped, you know, kind of grow me into, you know, who I am today and my vision, my direction. And, you know, I'm extremely happy with Hamilton and you know, how it was productive and produced, and, you know, and I can speak on friends' behalf too, that, you know, everyone that I was close with loved it.
Awesome. Andre Bogdanovich, class of 2019, piggybacking off demand for IPAs, has there been any change in the demand for lighter session type IPAs?
Right now, specifically, I don't know the exact answer to that. I know a few years ago, the session IPAs were popular. The all-day IPA Founders All-Day IPA is one of them. We ended up doing a session IPA, you know, shortly after they put theirs out, and you kind of saw all these light session IPAs then. I think that trend has kind of disappeared a little bit. I'm sure it's still there, but, you know, maybe not at the forefront that it had been, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. But I think a drinkable IPA is definitely, you know, there's probably more of a demand for that. So like the Toucan beer that I was talking about before, it is an IPA, but it's not an in your face IPA. And, you know, I think that's why that's my favorite one right now. Just because it's nice and easy to get into. You know, you don't have to have half a can for your palate to acclimate and you know, be ready for an IPA. You know, sometimes they can really just kind of punch you in your face and, you know, not make it easy to get into.
Yeah, definitely. Tim Sommer, I'm sorry, I don't know your class year. How has the emergence of spiked seltzers impacted your business? And I can say that I love the fact that we've had spiked seltzers implemented.
And planned. For the
Yeah.
record.
The seltzers, we kind of saw some room to, jump in and figure out how to try to grab, at least a little part of the market share with that. And the seltzers are awesome. I can tell you, with the COVID and shutdown, all spring long, when we first came out with them, that's all I was drinking, and it rolled right into summertime, and I couldn't be happier with the seltzers in general. I used to have them here and there, but obviously now, since we make them and widely distribute them, it's in my face a whole lot more. And the seltzers, they're super easy to drink. It's even more welcoming and inviting than a beer is. And they go down nice and easy. So it's we kind of lucked out with having all the bars and restaurants shut down. As soon as that all happened, all of our draft accounts just went to zero overnight. So having the seltzers was definitely helpful, because it was just a new arm to the business that we didn't have beforehand. And you've got the Bud Light seltzer, Corona seltzer. Obviously, if all those guys are doing it, they're realizing that there's market share there to try to scoop up. And I think it's going to be a style of beer, style of beverage that's definitely around. It's going to stick around.
Can you talk a little bit more how COVID has affected your business, and in what ways?
The biggest impact was the bar shutdown. Every alcohol company out there felt that. And every restaurant felt it too, because a lot of their markup is on alcohol. But that was probably the biggest the biggest hit that we took, was losing that part of the business. But we had a phenomenal summer, even still, even with bars and restaurants at half capacity. And draft taking a big hit, even though it had reopened, it still took a big chunk away from what a normal summertime months would be.
Mm-hmm. And how is it? I'm assuming the brewery was open this past summer. How did you prepare for guests, and what protocols? And if you don't want to dive too much into it, just high level is great.
Yeah. So, and actually, I was thinking I should say that was the other part that was affected. So we did takeout only. We weren't doing any pints. Nothing to stick around and stay. It's just because our space is small. You can't have more than a handful of people and have them be social distanced away from each other in a tiny little tasting room and a slightly larger patio outside. So it was just easier for us to form a line and do takeout only. And that was also kind of one of the things that helped with the one-off beers, is that since we couldn't have people enjoying the pints right there on site and giving us the feedback, we said, hey, let's throw it in a 16-ounce 4-pack can set up, and still give the customers what they're looking for. So it was tough not having the full normal tasting room open all summer, but given the circumstances, I think we still did it right. And basically, it was just we had somebody watching the line and keeping people in order and making sure that they walked in this way and out and around, back out the other way.
Absolutely. Over the years, there's been a ton of consolidation in the craft beer space, with major players acquiring smaller breweries. Do you see that model as one you would like to follow, or are you guys looking to stay independent?
I can say that we're independent, and that's how we ran the business. We know that we've got our work cut out in front of us. Our plan is really to dive deep, dive deep instead of wide. So we only distribute from Montauk to New York City up into Westchester right now. That's our current footprint, and we felt that was a range that we can handle, within our 10-person team, and basically just give that all of our effort. You know, we know that we can expand outside of there and sell in different directions, but you know, it's more important to really get a foothold here and you know, what we call our backyard and make it so it's manageable. But as far as, you know, the major players acquiring smaller breweries, you know, that it had been happening. I think with everything going on right now, I think everything's kind of frozen. But our plan has always been to be independent and just drive the business, you know, keep it a sales driven business and really just try to keep the liquid flowing.
Absolutely. So Sarah Hasada asked if you're distributing to the West Coast. You did already answer that. And your friend Sean wants to know if your backyard can be expanded to Seattle. So there is demand for the expansion. That's for sure.
Not yet, Sarah and John Hopper. As soon as we can, I promise.
Sean, you can just move to the East Coast.
Sean, you're on mute. All right, I have one last question, and it's going back to your spike seltzers. So what is the difference in the process, right, when you decided you wanted to start distributing spike seltzers? I know before you were saying you would do a lot of trial and error and you'd try other companies and get ideas from that, but how did you sort of formulate this spike seltzer, and what's the process like that compared to the brewing process of a normal beer?
It's kind of similar, but it was basically, you know, doing the trial and error, trying the White Claws, trying the Truly, you know, trying the different styles out there. And basically with the seltzer, you make it's a malt base, so it's still, you know, it's still like a beer and ready to be, you know, it still turns into alcohol the same way, but you basically get the base and then add in the different flavors. So with beer, you're pulling from the different styles of malted grains, pulling from the hops, pulling from any other, you know, additives into it, and that's how you're trying to get your flavor, and it's bitter. But with the seltzers, it's more, you get your alcohol base and then you add the, you know, the fruit flavors to it. So our team went up, the seltzers made at Wachusett also. Our team went up there and just tried you know, a dozen or so more different styles of you know, flavors of seltzer, and either turn the flavor down or, you know, add a little sweetness here, mixed in this or that, and basically that's how we landed with, you know, the 4 that we have now. And you know, we had no idea what to expect when we put that out. So you know, we have battles from the lime fans versus the mixed berry fans, and you know, it's kind of fun to have people, you know, bickering over that sort of thing. But it's,
I love getting that lemon lime in a 6-pack. I will buy that all day long.
You're in the lemon lime.
I'm a berry gal, see?
I'm raspberry lime is my go-to.
All right, so we have a few more, and then I have a final question that was a texted in question that I'm a huge fan of. So is there a possibility in the future of Montauk Brewing for spiked seltzer kegs? And would you consider moving into boxed wines?
One of them's a setup. I would say probably not a possibility for spiked seltzer kegs, although we have thought of it and it would be awesome. But I don't know that it's something that we're going to do. And are we moving into boxed wine? I can't say Montauk is, but Ben Ferntig, I would love to go into boxed wine with you.
The next venture.
Yeah.
We can make a winery in Clinton, New York.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my final question. Would you consider doing a collaboration with Hamilton College Little Pub or the Village Tavern or any of our central New York staples?
I would love to. Don's Rock too. I lived above Don's Rock my senior year.
Oh my goodness.
It was awesome.
The most beautiful housing on campus.
I worked there.
Yeah, I loved it up there. But yeah,
I can't believe it's still standing.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I would definitely love to do that sort of thing. And I know a few years back, I left a handful of cases for the little pub, and we had kind of talked about an idea of how to try to get the beer up on campus. So let's circle back and figure out how to make that sort of thing happen, because I would
Stay
love
tuned.
nothing more than to get the beer on campus.
I'm all in. And the spike seltzers.
Yeah, they go hand in hand.
Don't forget. All right, well, reunion tasting session from Ali Forbes.
Tell me when.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So I don't have any other questions in here, and I don't know if anyone else has any questions. But we really appreciate this. Has been awesome, and we're looking forward to doing more of these and getting Montauk Brewery into Connecticut and upstate New York.
Yeah, can't wait. And I hope that day comes sooner than later.
Yeah.
Until then, thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome. Happy to share my story with you guys and a beer or two. Cam, I see you got the pumpkin. Right on.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks for
Thank
sticking around.
you.